Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's stream. We are streaming live from my basement, which is essentially my studio, jam space, you name it. Everywhere I want to come to make music, I come down here and have pretty much everything at my disposal. And it didn't happen overnight. This collection of mine has taken quite a while to build. We're not going to talk too much about that tonight, but let's talk about the gear that we are using at least. So today we are playing, well, I'm going to probably switch guitars at some point, but right now I'm really digging this Squier, that's right, Squier Cabronita baritone. So it's a Telecaster that is baritone scale, which is 27.5 inches. And I do believe Fender makes a baritone guitar in the Mexico plant, but I'm not sure if there's a US made baritone available, at least not in the regular production. There might be a custom shop edition or something like that. But the baritone guitar, if you don't know, is slightly lower than your regular guitar as far as tone frequency. Whereas a regular guitar is tuned E, A, D, G, B, E, this guitar is tuned a perfect fourth down. So instead of E as our lowest string, we have B. And it's the exact same tuning, only for every string, only down a fourth. So it's B, E, A, D, F sharp, B. So the weird leap is that between D and F sharp, because you expect that to be, you expect to hear E. Well, whatever, but in any event, it's B to B. So it's not quite a bass, it's still a guitar in that it has 6 strings, it's tuned in the same intervals, and you can drop the D as it were, but instead of dropping the D, you'd be dropping the B to an A, so that it would be the same tuning as drop D, only again, down a perfect fourth. So if you don't know what a perfect fourth is, don't worry about that. We'll save that for another day. Just know that that's a very common interval as far as the tone, the root pitch, in this case, would be B, and a perfect fourth from that would be E, which was B. So that's your perfect fourth. The guitar itself is, like I said, a Squier. This guitar is made in China, I want to say. Yeah, crafted in China and designed and backed by Fender. And why would I have this guitar when I just played a $2,000 Ernie Ball Music Man in the previous stream? Well, I got to say, this thing is just really, really good. Yes, it was MSRP 420 or 430 bucks, something like that. And I had to wait quite a bit for it to get into my hands because these kind of sold out quickly, and now the used market reflects that in the prices being in the $500, $600, $700 every now and again. But in any event, this guitar is MSRP around the $430 mark, and for that price point, it sounds awesome. And it not only sounds awesome, it feels really good too. We have a very nice gloss body with no blemishes from what I can tell. And the neck is a maple neck, and it doesn't have that weird yellow tint that you used to get on Squiers. This is a really nice poly finish that looks like a friggin' Fender neck. So it's obviously a Chinese Fender neck or a Squier neck. But we have a rosewood fretboard, I believe. I don't think they use Pau Ferro or whatever their rosewood alternative is. It still looks like rosewood to me. But plastic dots, plastic nut, not the greatest bridge here. But we do have individual saddles, which is not always the case on a Telecaster. And maybe it is always the case on the Cabronita Telecaster. I'm not too familiar with that specific model, but I do know that there is a non-baritone version of the Cabronita Tele, and I think it comes down to the 2 P90 pickups. I think that's really the distinguishing characteristic of the Cabronita Tele. But we have no whammy bar action here, just 4 screws drilling that bridge and these saddles into the actual body. to P90. I think they're called P90. They might have some other proprietary name since they are a Fender product, but they're essentially just old school single coils that are reminiscent of what you'd find on a Gibson, like a 50s Les Paul, early 50s. And we have volume, tone, 2 knobs, real simple. I love it. 3-way toggle, which it's not the most robust feeling switch, but it does do exactly what it needs to do. It stops in each position, and I'm not terribly concerned about it for now. The pick guard is a single ply little white deal. I don't know what to tell you about it. It's nothing special. You could probably replace it with a Moto one or tortoiseshell or something cooler, but whatever, it does the trick. And yeah, finally we've got our 6 Kluson style. They're not branded Fender, but they're made by Fender's Chinese, equivalent, and they look like the Kluson 6-in-line style tuners. And 4-bolt neck, string-through design. Okay, cool. So that's the guitar. We are plugging this guitar through my Line 6 DL4 delay station / looper pedal, which we're going to probably use extensively tonight. We're plugging it from there into the Peavey 5150, which is just out of view, but it's over my right shoulder. And it is 120 watts of badassness. And it's obviously overkill. You don't need to tell me. I understand it's overkill, but boy, does it sound friggin' good. I don't even turn it up past, let's see, the lead is on 2.8 for pre-gain and 3 for post-gain. So we're not above 3 in any context on that amp, and it's still really loud. It's being fed into a 4x12 Peavey cabinet with, I think they're the Sheffields. This is not my cabinet. This belongs to Greg, so shout out to Greg for letting me house this cab and hook it up to my 5150. Killer combo. I think they're Sheffield speakers, but I could be wrong about that. Either way, it's a 4x12 Peavey cab, and it sounds friggin' awesome with this head. So that's the guitar setup today. Our bass setup is pretty much identical to the last few times. We have our Precision V bass over here in the corner or in the back, and right behind that our Fender Rumble 100 watt amp. So you may ask me why, with all of these tube amps that I generally have, I have a 5150, a Marshall Plexi 1987X, and an orange Rocker 30, so 120, 50, 30 watts in that order, all tubes for the most part. And I actually have this Peavey Classic sitting next to me that is the newest acquisition, all tube. Why do I go solid state for bass? I've weighed the pros and cons, and I've listened to tube-driven bass amplifiers, and I can't tell the difference. If there is a difference, then it doesn't warrant the $400 premium generally between the two if you're looking at equivalent amps. This is a 100-watt solid-state amp, and it's hooked up to a single Eminence 15-inch speaker, and it is loud AF. And it keeps up with this Marshall stack, or half stack, and the Peavey 5150. It keeps up. And what more can you ask for an amp? And that's like a $250 platform right there. They do make smaller Fender Rumble amps, but that's the one that fit my needs the most. And I just have a hard time justifying buying like a Trace Elliot or an Ashdown or something that's a little more boutique from a bass standpoint. Again, I am not a gigging musician. This is the extent of my creation, is this room for the most part, but I do record quite a bit and try to create my own music with all of these instruments, and for that purpose it does just what I need it to. What more could you ask for? So that's our bass rig today, our guitar rig as well, and then I'll be jumping on the drums behind us, which is a cheapo Pulse set, which the only thing Pulse remaining are the shells. We have the bass kick, the toms, and that's it. Everything else has been replaced, including the snare, which is now a DW, one of the Metal Series snares, and a Meinl hi-hat that's a nicer upgrade. I also have a Pocket A, a Zildjian Pocket A that I like better than that, but this one takes a beating, so that's fine. And other than that, just more Zildjian and Meinl cymbals and this Gibraltar rack around it. So that's what you're looking at. as far as the instruments that will be played today. So the other side of things, as far as what is capturing the stream, I also like talking about camera equipment and understanding what you guys are using out there for your streams. I use a Canon R6, which is a mirrorless Canon camera, and it's not their top of the range, but it's one of their more professional geared cameras or oriented cameras, and I absolutely love it. Is it overkill for this purpose? Yes, but I use it for other purposes, photography and for my work as a marketing manager. So I have an R6 capturing things being fed into my computer. OBS Studio is running the show as far as capturing the stream and sending it to Twitch or YouTube or what other platform we have capturing this live feed today. So that's everything that you see here, and today we're just going to play a little music. I want to focus on one concept in specific, and that's kind of my idea for this stream, is that I want to talk about one idea kind of in depth and maybe expand upon it as much as I feel necessary. But there's a lot that goes on in music, and we as musicians often don't understand the theory behind what we're playing. And, you know, that's fine. You can get a long way, and you can talk to some very high-level musicians who, beyond the 3 chords that they know really well, they can't tell you what chord they're playing or what inversion or the rhythmic figure, whatever, you name it. There's music theory things that are a bit of a mystery to a lot of players. Yes, you can get by without that knowledge, but I do find that the more musical theory knowledge that you can absorb and apply to your own music making, the more that you can understand what you're doing and maybe make those connections a little quicker and apply it across different platforms and types of music. So not everybody has an interest in music that is varied. Some people just like playing the classics, and G, C, D, E, F, those are everything you need to make all that music. But you know, if you want to get a little more advanced and start understanding some asymmetrical rhythms, for example, or maybe some interesting harmonies that you don't necessarily hear in popular music, you know, all of these things really interest me, and it took me a long time to dissect all of these concepts to the point where I feel comfortable talking about them. So hopefully you can get a little out of this as well. And if you're here for just the tunes, that's super cool as well. I want you to get whatever you want out of this stream. And if you care about music in a larger context, hopefully we can aim towards that as well. So the concept for today is the triplet, or more broadly, the duplet or uplet, I guess is a better way to put it, because there's not just a triplet. There is a duplet, there's a quintuplet, there's a sextuplet, which I guess could be broken down into a triplet again. But you know, you have all of these uplets, which the best way to think about anything that's an uplet, like a triplet or a duplet or a septuplet, would be fitting that many numbers or that many beats into one single beat of whatever the meter is. It doesn't always line up that way, but that's the easiest way to kind of think about it. And then you can expand upon it across larger rhythmic figures. So, for example, a triplet is 3 in the space of 1. And in most cases, a triplet is going to occur when you have a time in 2 or 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So a triplet is fighting against that 1, 2 march feel. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Doesn't matter if it's 2 or 4. They're very square. Those are the squarest rhythms and meters and tempos that are not necessarily tempos, but the squarest meters that you can have are 2 and 4. And the idea is you have 1 and 2 and So you need to be able to subdivide each single beat into an uplet. And let's just take the triplet for example, since it's the most common. So instead of 1 and 2 and ba 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 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 and 2 and 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 and 2 and 1 2 3 1 2 3. So that's the difference between or that's kind of the definition of what a triplet is in the context of a 2-beat or a 4-beat. It's basically fitting that 3 in the space of 2. And the reason that it's unique is because in most contexts, in most music, that is, when you establish a meter, you want to keep the meter 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and fit the melody and the accompaniment around that, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So that melody follows the meter and the rhythm very perfectly. But to make it more interesting, you can instead interpolate a grouping of 3, a triplet, in the space of 2. So the way it's notated is actually 3/8 notes with a little bracket and a 3. That means that that's 3/8 notes that span the duration of 2/8 notes. Or if it's a quarter note triplet, then it's 3/4 notes with a bracket and a 3. That's how it's notated, meaning that it's 3/4 notes that fit in the span or duration of 2 quarter notes. So 1 and 2 and ba 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 1 and 2. Same, the beat remains the same. 1 and 2 and 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and ba 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 bum. So that's a way to add rhythmic variation to a melody or an improvisation or anything in general. And I find the triplet to be one of my most creative outlets, especially on the drums, because when you're dealing with drums, you're dealing with rhythms. Yes, there are timbres and pitches associated with each instrument in the drum, each tom or cymbal, but for the most part, you're not listening to the drums or you're not making pitched music with the drum set, unless you're Terry Bozzio. So we have this instrument that is, for the most part, creating rhythm only. And the way to add variation, instead of kick and snare and kick and snare and kick and snare and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and can get really square. So if we add a triplet in there, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and diddly 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 dum and 2 and 1 and 2 and ba ba boo ba 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 and 2 and 1 and 2 da da do 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 1 and 2 and 1 2 2 2 which would be the 16th note, which isn't necessarily a triplet figure, but something to variate the rhythm so that it's more interesting. So that's how I think of drums, drumming, fills, and just adding something that's interesting to a beat. So this is a bit more exposition than we probably wanted to have for this stream, but you know, I really like to convey a specific concept, and the triplet to me is one of the more important aspects of music that a lot of people would find very interesting if they used it more. Frank Zappa, I know I hammer Frank Zappa and his music quite a bit on this stream, but Frank Zappa was said to have a fetish with the triplet. He would always have a triplet figure somewhere in his music that was in 2, 4, 6, or 8. And conversely, if it was in 3, you would usually find what's referred to as a duplet. So we'll get there, but let's go ahead and try to have some fun with the triplet here in creating some loops and practicing some music. So here we go. Right, had a hard time hearing that one, so we're gonna have to add a little volume. Here we go, let's do something else. Alrighty, so there we go. Song number 2, the triplets. I went to the triplet in the solo for the guitar. One, two, three, ya pa 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 pa. The beat is always a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, ya pa 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 pa. So whenever you have a grouping of 3 that should fit in the space of 2 of whatever note it is referencing, then that is a triplet. So we have the triplet is pretty straightforward. That's pretty straightforward. The opposite is well, not the opposite, but I like to think of it as the opposite. The inverse, maybe is a better way, is the duplet, where you have a 3 time, say like a waltz. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You're starting bum bum ba yum bum ba yum bum, and then all of a sudden you fit 2. Let's say we're dealing with 3/8 notes. You want to fit 2 in the same exact duration as 3. So 1 bum 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 yum dun 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 dun. So that's the concept of a duplet, which you're in the feeling of a 3. The beat doesn't change. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 da 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 dun dun dun. Between this and this, the duration is the same. Bum 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 bum. It's either 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. You obviously could do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. So that would be the concept of a quintuplet. And you can do the same with 7. You can fit 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, and it gets a little crazy at that point because you're just feeling so many subdivisions that you can get lost in there. So I find that the quintuplet is about the extent of where I feel comfortable interpolating these rhythmic figures into my music. But in any event, we have a duplet feel inside of a 3 meter. So 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and lay down a groove that takes advantage of that. Let's see here. We did a slow one in kind of 4 last time. Let's see if I can do a little quicker one. so there you go. Hopefully that made some sense. We were in the feeling of a fast 3 or a quick 3. 1, 2, 3, ya, da, 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 which I know could be interpreted as a 6-8 type thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or even a 12-8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Depends on how you phrase it. I was thinking of it in terms of just 3 short, 3-8. Call it good. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So there's your duplet concept, and it can happen on a larger scale or a slower tempo. You can have a duplet of 3 half notes if you span it over the course, or sorry, 2 half notes if you span it over the course of a 3 half note situation. You name it, the world is your oyster. But the feeling is as though you're going against the beat, because it's more of like you're forcing a rigidity that isn't there in the lilting 3. And conversely, if you're in the more rigid 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, ya pa 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 pa. So it's a different feel altogether. 3 is more of a dancey 3 feel, and then the 2 is more marchy. I know that's generalizations, but I think the generalizations for music concepts are a good way to at least grasp a general idea, and then you can hone in on your own. And the idea of the triplet and the duplet is one of those that took me a while to kind of understand all the intricacies, but now that I do, I use it all the time. All the time. So there you go. Let's go ahead and mix things up and maybe do a little 5 or 7. Let's see what my brain tells me. so there's a little 5/8, 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2. So 5/8 is subdivided in two big beats, a group of 3 and a group of 2. 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2. You obviously can rearrange it and do it 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3. But it falls into the same pattern. Go ahead and try it on yourself and you'll understand that it is alternating 3 and 2, so carve it up however you want. It's going to sound the same. So in any event, what you can do with 3 and 2 is you can do a duplet. 1 1 2 3. You got the same exact 3/8 notes that can be split into 2 instead of 3. So instead of 1 2 3 1 2 or 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2, it's da 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 da. So it kind of sounds like a little mambo-y there, but it's the triplet or the group of 3 being split into a group of 2, and then you have another group of 2 actual eighth notes. So it's kind of weird. You can also split this group of 2 into its own triplet. So ba da yada da 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 yada da da da. So it can get subdivided in a lot of different creative ways. And it's hard to really understand that outside of the context of a meter or something that's consistent, like a metronome or a band or something that you can have that interplay between the duplet and the triplet. And that's something that Brahms, the classical composer, is really known for, is utilizing that duple feel versus a triplet or the triplet versus the duple and making the music feel like it's I don't know, it's a little more earnest or something, but that's a rhythmic technique or trick that composers have wielded throughout the centuries, including the music composers of today. So that's our 5/8 with some subdivision. I know we're really getting in the weeds here, but I want to make sure that you kind of hear or listen for the triplet or the duplet in the context of an actual meter, and what better way to exhibit that than with a looper pedal. So again, this is really difficult, and I don't expect everybody to just pick this up as a technique and think that it's really fun and cool. I personally do, because I like the challenge, but it requires you to be very, very precise rhythmically, and that's a good thing in my eyes, because the better you can be rhythmically with a looper pedal and yourself, then the better rhythmically you will be in the context of a band or a recording studio if you have to play to a click track. And this is a good way to practice that. And by no means are my loops rhythmically perfect. I make mistakes all the time. I'll be the first to admit it. But that's cool. Mistakes are part of the game, and we're not here for perfection. Eventually, if we get there, great. But at this point, I have a realistic outlook on what I can expect. So we have the ability to lay down loops of all kinds and then reinforce these concepts for ourselves. And that's basically what I'm doing here, and allowing you to have a glimpse in my process. So I like to take that concept of a triplet and put it into a little melody or a loop and see if I can work it to death. And then maybe down the road, if I'm writing a song, then I can pull from these ideas that I'm working on right now. So let's see what we got up our sleeves. Oh, by the way, the baritone guitar, it makes you play differently. I don't know how to explain it or describe it any better than that, but it makes me, as a guitar player and somebody who's also, acquainted with a bass, it makes me play differently. And I don't find myself doing the old cowboy chords. You can do that, and just to hear what that sounds like, let's clean that up a little bit. So there you go. It's basically a regular guitar, just tuned down a perfect fourth lower. And you'll hear this tuning a lot on metal albums, and metal folks have been using lower than drop D tuning for years, and there are 7-string guitars that take the regular 6-string model, the E to E, and then add a B below it so that you have this B, but you just have that with an extra string on kind of the bottom of a regular 6-string instead of a regular 6-string tuned down a perfect fourth. Kind of a subtle difference, but the baritone really bridges the gap between the 6-string and the 7-string and gives you an option to have some really lower, I don't want to call them dirty or grungy tones, but it's lower. And whenever you can be low, just sounds gnarly and metal, I think is what it sounds. So if you're into metal, the baritone guitar is a great place to kind of dabble into the 7-string realm before going full on 7-string. So in any event, it makes me play differently, and I find myself having different loops or different styles when I loop, but I like that as an instrument. I like that an instrument defies the laws of homogeny, and even though this is a mass-produced instrument in China, it's mine. It's the only one that I have, and I really like how it feels, and therefore it inspires me to play different things than, say, that Telecaster over there that's a regular Fender US-made deluxe Tele. So a very nice instrument. But, you know, they each have their place, and I encourage you to maybe, if you are a guitar snob like me, then you can branch out a little bit and say, you know what, that thing looks cool, maybe I'll give it a shot. And worst thing is you're out $400 or $500. But the good news with these is that the value keeps going up because they are such great instruments. They didn't make a whole ton of them, and the market is pretty hot for them. So you can't have mine. It's mine. But let's go ahead and keep looping around. I think I like this guitar for now. We'll keep going with it. How are we doing for time? Well, we're actually at an hour already, so let's go ahead and wrap it up with one final jam. Let's return to my favorite 7/8. No, I need this to be a little louder. So that's interesting. That was not 7/8. That was 7 plus 8. So 17 or 15, I guess, is what that was. We don't want 15. We want, honest to God, 7. So sorry, my bad. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. right, so there you have it. A few loops for your Sunday night pleasure. Hope you guys liked it, and hopefully you were able to hear those triplets a little bit better. As always, I have my ear protection in, so if I was yelling, I apologize. But I do think that it's better to yell than to be deaf. So there you go. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. So if you do have any questions or topics that you'd like me to cover more in depth, send them my way and I'll talk about them as best I can. And hopefully we can learn a little something, or if you want to collaborate with me in a jam context, I would love to hear what you got to offer. So tune in next time. I go generally every Thursday night at 7:30 Mountain Time, but I do like to check in every now and again, usually on the weekend. So if you do have any questions or items that you would like to see on this live stream, then you go ahead and bring them up to me and I'll see what I can do. So thanks as always for watching. Please feel free to follow and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. That always helps. And again, if you have anything to add, join the discourse either in the chat or reaching out to me personally. So this has been Tanner Knight. Thank you. See you on the next one.